It's really amazing how buyers will not cease to disappoint, the moment you sell a PC and you are thinking, oh, this looks like a good buyer, the buyer just bought the PC without even asking questions. At some point, sometimes they turn around to be that very, strange buyer that we're talking about on this channel. You see, if somebody bought my PC well over 3 weeks ago and PC was kind of shipped out, I also made a video of me sending out this PC and everything was good. PC was delivered. I normally ship my items with DHL just to be sure that there are no stories at some point. Everything was kind of shipped out. The tracking number was uploaded to eBay. The PC was delivered. And I was taking a look at the transaction recently and I said, okay, this PC has been delivered. It's over 2 weeks. The customer didn't write me, which presupposes that everything was actually delivered or, arrived safely. Only for me to be surprised yesterday, I received a notification from eBay, the buyer writing me to say that the item has not been delivered. It's an item that's been delivered well over 2 weeks, according to the DHL tracking number. And I'm just thinking to myself, if somebody bought some item, let's say a computer that cost about, try to take a look at how much this PC did cost. It cost about 179 euros. If somebody did buy an item for 179 euros, the first week it wasn't delivered, second week not delivered, then 2.5 weeks later, the buyer currently appears from nowhere, says the buyer reported that their item hasn't arrived. This is something that has been, well delivered. Of course, this is not a case of DHL delivering something on that address, because when I put on the postcode of the buyer on the DHL tracking, it shows that the item in question, a complete PC, has actually been delivered. Of course, eBay is asking me to, respond, upload a tracking detail for the buyer, refund the buyer, and send the buyer a message. All what I'm going to do now is just to upload the tracking number, onto this, page that's or this request that the buyer has sent. And I'm also going to go ahead and make a screenshot of the various stages that the packet did go through before it was delivered. That I'm going to send as a message to the buyer. This is what I am talking about. The moment you think that, yes, you have finally found a good buyer that's not going to stress you out of the blues, this is strange. I've not seen something like this before. Of course, I've seen PCs being delivered. Buyer reaches out and said, look, the PC was destroyed during transportation. I have seen PCs, being sent out and they never arrive at the destination. You cannot track it and it just tells you that the item is still in transit, even when it's way over, 5, 6, 7, 8 days. You see, I have seen these kind of situations before, but this is going to be the first time in my 10 years of doing this business, to find out that 2.5 weeks later, even though the item has been delivered, there's a tracking number that has been uploaded to the platform, a buyer still reaches out and says, my item hasn't arrived. Let's say the item hasn't arrived. Where has the buyer been in the last 3 days, 4 days, 5 days after ordering the item? Why do you have to wait after 2.5 weeks? Of course, it just makes no sense, because even if the item, wasn't delivered, this is a tracking number that says that the item was delivered 2.5 weeks ago. How do I start to reach out to the shipping company to say, look, the item that you delivered 2.5 weeks ago wasn't delivered? It just makes no logical sense. Who is actually going to wait until this time? And this is why sometimes I also make these kind of videos, to talk to these buyers. I understand that, look, there's no amount of video I will make that will change these buyers, but I feel like somewhere, somehow, a potential buyer, might see this video and just turn a new leaf. Guys, buyers, please do the right thing. Do the right thing. You see, sellers are just people like you. Do the right thing. If you go onto a platform to shop, first of all, do your due diligence. Search for the item that you intend to buy. Check, ask yourself if this item actually is going to meet your need. Don't be in a hurry to just, some people go to the computer, to the internet, they go log on to eBay, they want to buy a PC, they just, all in a hurry, they search out an offer, they just buy it without even thinking, without reading the title, the description, they just buy it. And then the item gets delivered, and then they begin to make story. This is totally unacceptable, guys. Do your homework. If you want to buy an expensive item on eBay, say an item that costs already over 50 euros, that is, in my opinion, an item that's already very expensive. If you are buying a €1 item, you can just do whatever you want, but if you are buying an item where you have to spend a lot of money, I think it's also good for you, because for your own mental health, if you order an item for say €200 and the item doesn't get delivered, or the buyer sent you, or the seller sent you an item that doesn't meet your expectation, you kind of know how you feel. You're kind of angry because you have just bought an item of €200 and you want your money back as soon as possible. This is what you do as a buyer, But then also think about the seller also, You buying an item for €200 and the seller has to do everything he has to do to make sure that item gets sent out to you. Sometimes we have to spend money, buying packaging materials, buying bubble wraps, the time that we even spend in doing all these things, it's a lot, and then the item gets delivered and only for you to realize that the buyer in the first place didn't even read about the offer, they didn't read the description, the buyer didn't read to be sure that the item that he or she is buying is exactly the item that he wants. This is something that happens over and over and again. And then let's say you as a buyer, you buy an item and you realize that the item is not delivered. You see, one day after delivery, eBay pretty much gives you every detail that you need. One day after you order the item is not delivered. 2 days after, 3 days later, still not delivered. Reach out to the seller immediately and say, look, I still cannot find my item. I don't know. I have checked around my house. The tracking says it has been delivered, but the item is nowhere to be found. What do we do? But you need to reach out, because in this way, I can equally, follow up with my shipping service to be sure that, look, this item was delivered in the right address. But if you do not see anything, you wait 3 weeks after ordering the item, it just become a hassle to kind of trace the packet, to do. I mean, I don't just get who does a thing like that. Of course, I'm going to do what eBay has me to do, which is to upload a tracking number and a picture, showing that this item was sent to the exact address that was given to me on eBay. And hopefully the buyer look around his or her house and possibly find this packet. But as it stays, DHL claims that the item has been delivered, but the buyer now, 2.5 weeks later, is saying that the item wasn't delivered. I do not know what to do now as a seller other than to just, upload the shipping number and hope that everything, gets sorted out. Buyers, this is a video for you. Please do the right thing at all times. When you go onto any platform, doesn't matter if it's on eBay, Amazon, on individual websites, please do your due diligence and put yourself in the position of the seller as well. When you receive an item, inspect it to be sure that the item has been properly delivered. If you have a broken packet, immediately reach out to the seller and inform the seller and say, look, this packet got delivered today, but unfortunately, I see a dent on the packet. Make good pictures and then tell the seller, look, I do not know if this will affect the content of the item, but I'm going to open it up and take a look. Don't just receive items that be delivered in a broken package, or, kind of a broken package, dents all around. Don't just take it in and open it, because at this point, I do not have any evidence more to show to the shipping company that, look, this item was totally destroyed during transportation. Help us. This is the only way we can actually stay in business. This is the only way we can continue to render you guys, excellent service, delivering your items on time. I'm telling you, I know of some sellers that were ruined out of their business just because of this nonchalant behavior from sellers. They buy your items, they want to return it. I don't have a problem with returns, but they want to return it. They send it back in a very unkept manner, a very irresponsible manner, and then they receive your item. They do not inspect it. They go ahead and open it up, handle it shabbily, and then they reach out to you and want to return it. Or even when an item gets delivered, they do not go around their house to take a look to be sure that the item is not kept behind the garage or somewhere like that. They reach out to you and try to open a request that, look, they cannot find the item. And in this particular case, a buyer claims he didn't receive his item. 2.5 weeks later, he's trying to reach out and say, look, my item hasn't been delivered yet. Come on, this item is not coming all the way from China. You live in Germany and this item was sent to you all the way from Germany. Highest, it should take like 2 or 3 days to be at your address. See, if you do the right thing, we are here to render you guys, excellent service, decent hardwares in a timely manner. This all goes a long way to make the relationship between buyers and sellers even better for the betterment of everyone. I hope this video helps you. It finds you well. If it does, please go ahead and click on the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Until I see you again in the next one. Peace.